don't embarrass yourself. So
Yeah.
not everybody needs to do a podcast. Welcome back to the Video Dadcast. I'm your host, Darrell Stevens, and I'm here to help you make better videos and other content so you can video like a dad. Today, we're going to talk about podcasts with my guest, Chris Stone. Welcome, Chris.
Darrell, my favorite video dad. How are you, sir? I'm honored to be
great
on your show, man.
I'm so
Excellent,
glad to have
excellent.
you. And,
Yeah,
I just want to tell
I'm
people.
glad you asked me.
Well, people think you have to be a dad to be on my show, and that's not the case.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who aren't dads. In fact, I'm going to have women on my show, and they're not dads, and that's okay. It's not for dads. It's by the dad. And I'm, like most dads, I give advice whether you want to hear it or not. So I'm just trying to help.
You know what's funny is that word dad. I had, for years, I was a manager at Sony, and I had employees, people that reported to me from around the country, and they just ended up calling me dad. It was just, and I am a father of two boys, and they're now men,
Yes.
they, the employees, they called me dad. It was a little awkward at first, but it
Yeah.
was more of like a joke, like I'd say something that was very much like their dad, and they'd go, "Dad,"
Yeah,
and so it just became a thing, and I use it as a term of endearment for sure. Proud of it.
Absolutely. And people call me dad, and I'm happy with it. It's fine.
Absolutely.
My kids,
Absolutely.
I have adult aged children. They don't act like adults, but it is what it is. It's all good. But we're just here to help people. And today we want to kind of focus on podcasts. And you've done a lot. I mean, after 25 years plus with Sony, what made you decide to get into podcasting? What was your first introduction into podcasting?
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole thing with, the music business and then the transition into podcasting, a lot of people are like, what the heck? You're dealing with all of these artists, whether it's working the new DJ Khaled album or Beyonce or something like that, and dealing with companies like Spotify. And like, how did you go from this into working with podcasters and doing remote production? And honestly, a musician is a content creator. And
True.
so knowing how to carry the bag and knowing for years dealing with, essentially content creators, the transition was seamless for me. And, we talked a little bit here earlier about being a dad. Well, me being a dad was really the reason why I transitioned out of the music business, because in music business, as you know, went kind of haywire, in the 90s and 2000s, and people were like, okay, I can just swap hard drives with somebody, or I can jump on Napster or LimeWire or name whatever file sharing service that there is.
Yeah.
And so the music business went from something that was primarily physical in terms of CDs and cassettes and vinyl, which I've sold, tons of to buyers across the country, into this digital realm. And because I had such a affinity for digital, I was, tasked by Sony to be on these big task forces. And originally it was like, we have to combat this. And I was like, you don't have any idea. If you've been on a college campus, this is going this way. And so we have to kind of like move this ship. And so I quickly moved off the physical into the digital realm, jumped into a period of time where I was in the mobile portion of Sony. So I jumped off one sinking ship, a physical product, into another sinking ship, which was ringtones, and ran that business for a while, and eventually, streaming and working, being the conduit between Sony and Spotify and Apple Music and all those streaming services, until eventually, because I was a dad and because the music business and I was basically the only Sony employee here in Atlanta. It was like every time I would go to New York every 3-4 weeks to do meetings, it was like, well, here's a new package. What do you think about moving here and moving your family here? And we'll call you senior burgermeister of whatever. And for me, it was more important to be a father. It was more important for me to be a husband. And so I said, listen, we can do this thing remotely. I don't have to be in Spotify's backyard. They don't want to see me every day. I can fly up here. We can do this thing called Skype and Zoom and do these virtual meetings. And it worked for a while. until
Yeah.
I knew I had to stitch my parachute and create another business for myself here, because it just wasn't sustainable to be here in Atlanta, where all the business was in LA, New
Mm,
York, and some in Nashville as well. And
right.
so I did that. I started a business called Cast Ahead, where we work with motivated entrepreneurs to do a show, because as you know, Darrell, people, they don't want to know how all the stuff works. They just want it
Yeah.
done for them. And that's what we do, is we set up everything for them, from a podcast guest to setting it up on all the places, all the broadcasts, do a remote live production for them, and then repurpose the content into an audio podcast, as well as social media content that they can sprinkle all over the interwebs.
Nice. So speaking of audio podcasts,
Mhm.
what's your favorite audio platform or video platform for podcasts?
Well, for video podcasts, my favorite platform is YouTube. It just really is it is and we probably will get into this, because a lot of people, when they think the word podcast, they immediately, some people immediately, will die on the hill that it has to be RSS
Uh,
feed with audio
yeah,
only, and
audio
only on
only.
pod, and everything is blurred at this point, and especially recently, since YouTube is now full force into podcasts, and what they deem a podcast, and people who have been podcasting since there was a way to do it look at
Right.
that and think, well, this is not a podcast, but
Sure.
it doesn't matter, right?
Well,
And
you notice
so,
what I call mine is the video Dadcast. So
mhm,
it's a little gray area, but it can go
sure,
either way. But yeah,
I
I'm
love
not
it.
married to specifically video or audio. I'll do both, and
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. And some people are very just audio driven and audio based.
yeah,
Making that transition from audio only to video can be a little challenging. And
mhm.
so let me ask you this. So I want you to rank these in level of highest, number one being highest to lowest. So when people are wanting to start a podcast,
Mhm.
gear, recording equipment. Okay. So
Okay.
that's one. Recording space, like the environment where you're going to record your podcast. Uh, the podcast name, the name of the podcast, why you want to do a podcast, and the subject matter for the podcast. So we have gear, recording space, podcast name, why you want to do podcast, and the subject matter. How would you rank those?
Why? I would start with why. I mean, I don't.
Number one.
Um, yeah, so I have a show that I do with my co-host Jim Fuse. It's called Dealcasters, and the
Okay.
whole reason why we did it is because we were remote producers. And the number one question everybody asks us when they're starting a podcast, or they're doing a video, or they're doing whatever, is, what kind of microphone should I get? And that's
Right?
not the first question anyone should ask.
Yeah.
It is not the first question. I mean, you could, as long as you can be heard and understood, then that's where you go. And so we don't really start with why as much as we start as who for. And so it's really
Hmm.
about, like, who are you serving first and foremost. And
Who's
so
your
if you
audience?
and that is a why in some way, shape, or form. So for instance,
Sure.
Darrell, this show, you know exactly who it's for. In fact, the introduction that you made was fantastic, and it lets people know
Thank you.
it's a station identification. Right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
this is who this is for. And if I hit play because I was attracted to something, and
Hmm.
whoa, this is not for me. It's sort of like if you get on a plane, right, and you hear this little, bing bing, this is flight 777, we're headed to Akron, and you're like, whoops, I'm supposed to be going to Vegas, and you get
Oh,
off the
no.
plane, right?
Sure.
But if you hear it and this is where you're going, then you're here, and you understand this is, and that's how you build community, and that's how you build
Mm,
a place where people feel safe, and people feel like, okay, I know that I am either going to be happier, more educated, I'm going to feel a certain way after I listen or watch this particular podcast.
hmm.
And it's really important to know why, because if you start there, you go, okay, this is the kind of person that I'm serving. This is the problems that they're having. These are the issues that they're having. And I know the solutions. I have the medicine. I can create the content that makes them feel a certain way. And that's where
Right.
we start. We start with the why. We start who for, and it's really it's the most important thing.
Mhm.
when you're starting a podcast, not the microphone. You
Right.
mentioned gear. I would put that maybe
Gear.
lowest of that list,
Yeah, most people
because
start there. They start, it's
yeah.
like, okay,
Oh.
I need a Shure SM7B, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if I'm going to do a podcast, I have to have a Shure SM7B. I'll figure out what the subject matter is later, but I want that mic first. Then I'll start a podcast. And that's just wrong.
No, no. It's like running a marathon with a pair of $500 shoes. It's like you got
Right.
to train. You have to put in the
Yeah.
work. You have to put in, you get your plan together and say, okay, well, I can't run, 26 miles tomorrow. I've got to
Yeah.
start and run however many based on this plan. And if you do the plan and you put the work, like running the marathon is easy because you have put forth the training. And so, you don't buy the $500 pair of shoes or the
Yeah.
$400 microphone, because it's not going to sound good, because, or it might not sound good because you might not, you had mentioned on your list, like the room that you're in, the space
Yeah.
that you're in. And so that, on Dealcasters, Jim and I talk about this. One of the, every time we go live and we're demonstrating microphones, or we're talking about podcasting, we're hosting a podcast where we're talking about podcasts, very meta, and someone
Right.
will chime in and they'll say, what's the best microphone that I can get that's under $100? Well, I can't answer that question. I know a handful of microphones that are in that range that are good. Well, what I
Yeah.
want to know first is, what room are you in? Is there carpeting? How much space do you have around you? Is there a bunch of glass around you? And so, buying things like a condenser microphone is probably not a good idea. So grab yourself a
Right.
dynamic microphone like a Samson Q2U, or there's a bunch of great microphones that are now somewhat affordable. But before you even do that, like, find a space to where, if you are on video, that you feel like you're good in the shot. No one cares about
Mhm.
what's on my floor right now. Right,
Right.
Darrell? I mean, they
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
over here, I've
Just
got
that.
boxes and lights and extension cables and all kinds of stuff outside of my frame. Right. But I also have
Mhm.
treatment up on my walls. And this is a space that's almost, it's not dead completely, like a
Right.
closet with clothes or something like that. But that
Yeah.
space is really important, I think, first and foremost. And you could record a podcast in a dead space with sound treatment, with not even a microphone yet. You can, I mean, people have recorded really good sounding podcasts with their earbuds from their phones, but they're in a good space. And then you could do a little treatment if you want on that recording. But a dynamic microphone in a dead space is going to cost you less than an Xbox, which is probably what a lot of people are will shovel out money to buy a Xbox, or do various things. You don't need that big of a budget. You just have to
Sure.
know, first and foremost, who you're talking to. A dynamic mic that's, can be anywhere from, I mean, you can get from $400, which I wouldn't never start with. I never recommend
Right.
somebody starts with an SM7B. Graduate to where you can pay for the expensive shoes for the marathon,
Sure.
but start with some Skechers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Samson, I've heard of that a lot. The Q2U.
Mm-hmm.
I
Love that
don't have
mic.
one personally. I want to get one just so I've got it. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
$70 mic, right? It's very inexpensive.
Well, and the
This,
Rode mic that you've got is
yeah,
like, but that's like
it's not
$100 mic.
$99. Yeah, this is the
Yeah, great
$99
mic.
version because XLR they have a USB version. It's a little more, but
Mhm.
it works great for me.
Sure.
And I don't think people are gonna say, you know what, he didn't have enough bass in his voice. He just
No.
there was not.
Right.
People they want to know, what did he say? What was he talking
That's
about?
exactly
And
right.
do I resonate with that or not? So
It's
that's
exactly
important.
right, Darrell. I
Yeah.
mean, it's no one goes and hits play on a podcast because, oh, you know what? I just love the Dadcast because it just sounds so great. It's
Right.
like butter in my ears. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they're listening and
No.
they're watching because they're hearing and understanding what you're saying. And so that is
Yeah.
the number one thing, is to be heard and understood clearly. And if you've got noise and stuff going on in like fans and clicking noises and things like
Mm.
that, you got to figure out how to get that out of that. That's more important than the expensive
Sure.
mic. And
Yeah.
all this is free, by the way. And so when you do that, then you don't send people running for the hills. They'll stick around if there's a thumbprint on my lens, or
Yeah.
things flutter a little bit every once in a while. But man, you have something annoying in there from an audio perspective, a fan that somebody hears once and then they can't unhear it. Like that's what sends people running for the hills. So be clearly heard and understood is the number one rule for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So people are doing a podcast. A lot of people give up early. I guess their expectations are really high when they start, and when they're not getting a lot of listens or a lot of views, they get discouraged. Pod fade. We hear that term, pod fade. They just fade out once they start. They start strong and just can't maintain it. What do you think is one of the biggest reasons podcasts don't last?
I think it's the same reason why a lot of other content creation also. I mean, people talk about podcasts, people quitting after 6 episodes, and that's a real thing. But people also quit after, doing a YouTube channel after so long, because I think the perception is that, you're seeing all this stuff and you're reading all of the headlines, and people are perpetuating that with their content. And they think that you can just overnight become Mr. Beast or overnight become Joe Rogan. These are unicorns, right? These are content creators. Like when you first start to play a guitar and sing, you don't look at Taylor Swift and say, I should be doing this. Like Taylor Swift started, and you don't hear about the struggles, and you don't hear about all of the, and by the way, like she's a unicorn, right? And so if you look at what most people are doing, they just are not willing to put in the necessary work to be successful. And if you don't like doing a podcast, then maybe you shouldn't do a podcast. And Darrell, like early on, I was always just like trying to coach people, like, you got to keep on putting the reps. And eventually you just get to the point where you look at them and you hear them and they just are not into it. And no one wants to see or hear someone that doesn't love what they're doing. I could tell when I see your content, you love what you're doing. And that's important, because and people resonate with that. People learn to trust you. It's just like you love doing this stuff, and you love putting in the work.
Since I was a kid, I love doing this kind of stuff. And it's important for me to, what a lot of my videos, how they come about, and I do a lot of shorts. That's kind of the majority of what I do. I need to do some more, long tutorial videos, but I want to quickly tell somebody something I just learned how to do that made my life better, that made my life easier. So whatever it may be, the way I'm doing a video, or, how I'm recording my audio, whatever it may be, I just learned this new thing. So I want to share that quickly. So I'll do a quick short on it, and that's what I'll put out. And some of the ones that I put the least amount of production value into, I'll just quickly, one shot, just get on camera and do it. I didn't set all of the lights beautifully. Everything's not well lit. It's not perfectly framed, but those do the best. It's, they're authentic, and I'm sharing something that it helped me, and I know it'll help you. So I want to share that. So that's kind of one of the things that I like to do, and it's fun. And
it keeps you, when you have that mindset, which is like the ultimate mindset, like, okay, I just learned this. I can't wait to share it. And when you can share it to the world as easily as you can in creating this content, and you put that out as quickly as you can, and it's authentic, that's what resonates with people. And what happens, I think, with a lot of content creators, back to the question about pod fade, is that they put it out and then they think to themselves, I could do this, and I could do this, and I could nip this here and tuck this here and do this here and do this. And you know what happens? It doesn't get done. And it doesn't end up resonating with people, because you haven't really, no one really trusts it. And I think this is why I love live video so much, Darrell, is that like we'll go live and stuff will happen, it just will, and sometimes it's great. and you catch it. It's almost like improv jazz. Like Miles Davis never practiced with his band. He just like the stage was practice. The stage was it. And so when you could do that, you catch magic. You can catch something that's great. You can catch something that people resonate with, because it's like, hey, I'm actually like almost feeling like I'm in the same room right now with Darrell. I almost feel like I could chat with him. He's going to respond to me. He's going to say hi to me, and he might fumble and say and but who cares?
Right.
This is the way I
Just
talk.
It's called
Yeah.
talking.
Yes, exactly. And so
And
that's why I love
talking's
live video
not
too,
perfect.
is that most of the time these things are done in one take anyway. And so why put it out edited where people can see it edited in terms of a podcast, when you could just have it feel like a great conversation between,
Right.
two people or three people, for however many people. And, I just think, for me, that was it for live video. It helped me overcome perfectionism. It helped me with all of this content that was stuck on my hard drive that I never felt like was good enough to put out. And, it helped me to get through a lot of stuff and put out reps. And sure, I look back at my old content. I'm sure you do too, Darrell, where it's like, ooh, it feels cringy, but you know what? Look where you're at now. Look at the content you're doing now, and how far you've come. And I think that's a good feeling.
Yeah. Your first video isn't going to be as good as your 100th video. It's just not. It's not possible. And anything that you do, you're just going to progressively get better. That's the goal. If something's not working in their podcast, they've tried something, it's just not working. How do you think about people making major changes to their podcast in midstream, more or less? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Similar to a YouTube channel. So somebody's doing a YouTube channel, whatever they're doing, sometimes they shift gears so dramatically that people don't know what to do. But sometimes it may be important, because if what you're doing isn't connecting with people, you shouldn't be doing that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, this is excellent, because I just had this conversation this week with one of my clients, and it's something to where, if you have it depends on the length of time that you've been sort of serving the community that you're hoping to serve. And it also is about finding someone that you trust that will give you the answers that will help you, not what you want to hear. So a lot of times you'll hear somebody say, what do you think about this podcast? What do you think about this video? For the most part, they're just wanting to hear you tell them that it's good. And what you really want, what you really want is to send it to somebody and say, listen, I want your true thoughts on this. And give them task them a little bit, and then be ready to receive it, and be ready to do something about it. And because a lot of times somebody will say that, and I'll say, okay, you want I want to help you, right? And so I'm going to give you my opinion, which you could take one way or the other. That's fine, but I will give you what I honestly feel. It is maybe going wrong, maybe what you're doing right, and my suggestions for doing it. And so as a content creator, you got to be ready to receive that and not get your feelings all hurt, either. Like this, my intentions, or the person that you should surround yourself with, their intention is to help you get better. And the only way to do that is for you to say, hey, you send me a video. Hey, Chris, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And I'm going to tell you what I think. And because I want to help you. I'm not just going to tell you something to make you feel good just because, if I don't think that. If I really think that, I'm going to tell you that.
I see people who are coaches in whatever it may be. I'm going to coach you in how to do this, that, or the other. And people that get offended easily shouldn't hire a coach, because the coaches are going to be real with them and tell them, no, I told you what you need to be doing to make this work, and you're choosing not to do it. I'm here to hold you accountable. So if you don't want to be held accountable, don't get a coach. And I'm sure as a consultant, you have to deal with that a lot. And And I know, I can tell based on your personality that you're very gentle with them and that you're not gonna, punch them in the face and say, you're an idiot. You're not Gordon Ramsay or something. But, constructive criticism is just necessary, and people
Yeah,
need to
some
be able
people
to receive it.
they need more of a harder nudge than others.
Sure.
I mean, it's just just knowing how to deal with people. Being the age that I have and have dealt with people of all varying degrees of whatever. I mean, I like to keep things as positive as possible for sure. But sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with
Yeah.
people. If my intention is always to help people do better, and especially those that pay me as clients, right? I want to help them do better. And if they're if they're not willing to hear what I have to say or value what I have to say, well, maybe they should find someone else. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, and I've done that. I've had conversations before, Darrell, with people, and they're ready to pay me. They're ready to go, but they're just not ready. Their show's not ready. They
Yeah.
don't. We talked about it earlier. Like, who are you serving? Why are you doing this? And they're just talking about all the people that they know that they can have on the show, and
Yeah.
they know they should do a podcast because in that business, this person has a podcast and this person, and
Yeah.
I can do it. And it's like, okay, whoa. Before we talk
And
about any of
there's
that, like,
Yeah, and there's
what's
a
the
ton of
purpose here?
people out there who are saying you should have a podcast. Everybody should have a podcast. No, everybody should not have a podcast. Everybody does not need to be. It's just like singing. Okay, no, not everyone needs to try out for American Idol. I know your Aunt Louise tells you you're the best
Hmm.
singer she's ever heard in her life. Don't embarrass yourself. So,
Yeah.
not everybody needs
Well,
to do a podcast.
well, that's funny. You bring up the American Idol thing, and how many times do we see this live on television where somebody gets up and they have this story about, and you follow their story and they talk about how great they are, and then they get up on stage or they get up in front of the judges, and it's horrific. And
Yes.
when they're told that they should not be doing this, and they're told they're not very good,
Right.
they're shocked. They're like, "Well, this is
Yes.
the first time that anyone's told me
The truth.
right." And I think there's a lot of people that are out there that are doing podcasts that are the same way. They feel like,
Yeah.
everyone's just been fluffing the pillows, and every once in a while you got to sleep on the floor and
Yeah.
graduate to the pillow. I don't know where I was going with that analogy,
Sounds
but
good though. Fluffing
yeah,
pillows is
okay.
a good thing. Everybody should fluff pillows. All right. So I saw you had a session at Podfest this year, and you talked a
Hmm.
little bit about Descript
Yeah.
and is that like of the tools that you use to put a podcast together? Now it can get weird because it's okay. Are we talking audio or are we talking video? Let's talk video for a minute. So when you're
Okay.
using separate tools for putting a video podcast together, how does Descript play into that? What would you use Descript for?
I use it mostly. I mean, it's a transcript service. But the great thing is that you're able to edit from the transcript, and so
Right.
I just said the word and so if you want to remove filler words from a video or from a podcast in audio, which it does both. You can remove those filler words if you want, but at the same time, because it's using AI in a lot of instances, you still have to be a human and have some discernment and judgment, and be able to go in and go, you know what, that flows into the next word, and if I cut it out, or Descript's AI comes in and cuts it out, it's going to sound jolting, and it's going to look maybe a little funky too if you're using the video.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do mostly with Descript is use it for the short form videos, for
Okay.
the portrait or the vertical videos, the reels and shorts and TikTok, because it has it's very powerful for you to be able to put it in there and easily go through a transcript, almost let's just say an hour-long podcast, be able to plop it in there and take the video of the guest and the host, or multiple guests if that's the case, and really just kind of turn it into something to where you can quickly create a little story in 59 seconds or less with captions, which is kind of what, the horrifying statistic that I saw recently. I say horrifying, but, to some maybe it's not. But most people are watching videos with captions and not listening. And so we talk about audio and we talk about video, and I am a huge audio proponent. It's like my number one thing is to make sure, and I just got done talking earlier in this podcast about how important it is to have great, clear audio. It is, because you never know when somebody's going to hit unmute and actually listen to what you're saying. But they're not really listening. Most people are watching these videos. And so this is why you always see the captions on this. So I use Descript a lot for the captions, right? And so you want to grab people's attention in the first 5 seconds, and you want to give them some words that they can read because they don't have it unmuted. Right. And I think most of the time it's like I know TikTok, when you open it up, it immediately starts playing and with audio, but you have to go in and find the place to where you can, keep it muted when you open it, because you don't want to be that person that's in the middle of a meeting and open up TikTok and the audio comes blaring out, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people are kind of surfing that stuff in public situations where they don't want it heard out of their phone. And so that's happening a lot. And so, in Descript, it's a real easy way to kind of pull in and make take the transcript, make captions, brand it with, your own fonts. So like we talked earlier today, Darrell, about your particular font, which is killer. And so you could actually use that in Descript, upload it into Descript. Look at this font. Isn't that beautiful? So cool. And
it's called
so
Scribble.
You could actually,
if anybody's interested, this Scribble. I think you can get it on Envato Elements. There's probably a link in the description for Envato Elements, so you may want to check that out.
There we go. I love it. Scribble sounds like a Pokemon character, but I think, so Descript is incredibly powerful. I love it. But again, I think like every one of these pieces of software that we use, whether it's, Adobe Premiere, or if it's, downloading content from Envato or Final Cut, or all of these things that we use, we have to drive it. We can't just plop stuff in it and let it spit out on the other side and say, I'm using this. And so Descript allows for a lot of human interaction to be able to really sort of, call it humanize, if that's even a thing, to make it look like when you see a video that I create from a particular podcast, it doesn't really, I try as much as much as possible to have it be different and to have it set itself apart, and doesn't really look like everyone else's. Doesn't really look like the Alex Hormozy font that you see on all of the people that they're using. Like, hey, I love this because I can just plop my video in and it outspits 20 reels, and I can just throw it out onto my social media. It's not really resonating with people. And so,
and you and I both have worked with things like Opus Clips and these other programs. And, I'm just a little over perfectionist, but so many of them I wouldn't put out the way it is. So it's just like anything else. You just want to go in and tweak it a little bit, touch it up, put your own touch on it. But it's like people using AI to write a script or write something for them. You don't necessarily want to just take it, let ChatGPT write it, and put it out there. You need to go in and kind of fine tune it and stuff. So a lot of these programs, you're going to want to do that. So let's talk about frequency of podcasts. When somebody's starting a podcast and they want to know, well, how often should I do episodes or release episodes? Some people are weekly, some people are monthly, bi-weekly. What do you think is a good rule of thumb for how often you should post?
I think when you're first starting out, you don't quite know yet what your audience, how their consumption sort of, their patterns are. And I think we would be kidding ourselves if we were to think that everyone is listening to every one of your podcasts. And so, so things are going to vary. I mean, even your favorite podcasts, you don't listen to every single one of them. I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but for the most part, like I have a bunch of podcasts that I listen to. I don't listen to every single one of them. I don't go and binge listen. It's just not, it's just not what I do. And so I think most people are kind of like that. So when you're first starting out, again, going back to the people that you're serving, imagine, how busy are these people? Are they driving to where they work? I mean, think about putting yourself in that person's shoes and thinking about, like, if this person is listening to my podcast, where are they? What are they doing? When would they listen to it? And how often is certainly a part of it. So, but really the only way to do this, and the beauty of podcasting, is you make the rules, right? So you could do things like, I wouldn't come out of the gate testing multiple different formats and multiple different timing. I think you start out with consistency, because that'll keep you going on the bike, right? It'll keep you going with the reps, and you'll get better. No one's gonna go back and listen to your first episode if they joined you in episode 150, right? So you have to get better. And so I think creating a pattern for yourself and getting yourself going with some content initially, and if that's weekly, then great. And you can do that, and it's not like strapping you down. And this is like, again, it goes back to the passion thing. If you really hate doing it weekly and can't really do it, move it to bi-weekly. Nobody's gonna die. And
Right.
you at least are getting that consistent thing going. And then you can kind of look at your data, but don't like freak out on the data. It's okay if you don't have that many downloads just yet. Kind of use it as a gauge.
Hmm. You almost want to
And
kind of ignore it at the beginning a little
yeah,
bit
oh,
until it
100%,
starts to get
absolutely.
get a little bit of traction.
But I mean, it's a good gauge for you to be able to look at it, and certainly your videos are in the same boat there. But I think once you do that, you kind of it will fall into place as far as how often you should do it, how many
Mm.
episodes. I think when you launch, you probably want at least 3 or 4 episodes with a trailer, and so that way, if people do catch it and they do like it, they've got a number of episodes that they can listen to, and then you start going weekly or bi-weekly or monthly in those situations to do that and to serve your folks. And like, I do a lot of live shows too, Darrell, with my clients, and so it's like that spot and time is carved out, so it's easier to go and get people to be on your show, because it happens every Monday at noon, or every Tuesday at
Right.
noon, or
Yeah.
every or whatever. And so it's a cycle that's easy to kind of schedule and move around. But if somebody can't make it, you can do what I call time travel, which is basically like we'll record the episode like we're doing today,
Okay.
and then we'll
Sure.
schedule it to go live on that normal cycle. So your
Nice.
audience that you have built live knows that show's coming every Friday at 11, or
Yeah.
and so they're there, and they, even if that episode is recorded, it's there for them. And if they can't make it, they can get it on replay anyway.
Sure. Okay. So we're going to do another episode, and we're going to talk about live streaming. So I'm
Okay.
writing that down right now.
Yeah.
We will revisit that and do that. So what other projects do you have working? What do you got going on in the works right now?
Well, for me, I'm launching my new website. It should be, by the time everyone's hearing and seeing this, it'll be live on castahead.net. And that has been that was a huge undertaking for me, in filming a lot of the case studies and the videos that I have for all my clients. That'll be up on that website.
Nice.
And Darrell, for years I had been, preaching and, on these shows and to my clients, like, listen, if you can't do it yourself, hire someone else to do it, and invest in yourself, and have somebody, do this for you. And here, meanwhile,
Right.
my website sat dormant for 3 years.
Right.
And I was like, if it really didn't represent the business that I'm in
Yeah.
right now. And so I was like, I've got to do this. And the only way I'm going to do this is I got to hire somebody to do it. And so, but that doesn't mean I'm not doing any work. I have to create the
Right. You're
content
still
for it. Right.
involved. Sure.
Yes, exactly. So that's
Definitely.
really been a big thing for me, is getting that together, and really, serving the existing clients that I have, and taking on new clients for remote production, as well as doing podcast production. So
Excellent. Well, we're going to put up on the screen where people can find you. You're all over the spectrum. What's your favorite, I guess, where you spend the most time? Is it YouTube or
I mean, I would say personally on LinkedIn, and I create a newsletter there, and I put some content up there for sure, and and we'll touch a little bit here on socials, because I think in podcasting a lot, and we talked about content creation and creating all these clips and all of that. I think it's imperative for podcasters to, when obviously you need to put a spot in the internet for on all these platforms for your podcast or for your business. That's obviously
right?
but I think it's important that you treat each sort of pipe, if you will, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, like all of these places, LinkedIn, Facebook, where you're putting all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that that it's appropriate for that platform, right? So if
Right.
you're a business podcast, you're probably going to be putting more content that's intended for LinkedIn, right? And so your TikTok stuff is probably not going to work.
Yeah.
If you're doing the same thing you're doing on LinkedIn and plopping it into TikTok, if you're doing the same thing you're doing on YouTube and plopping it into Instagram, these are all different platforms, because the
Yes.
expectation for someone who opens up those platforms or goes to those platforms online is a certain thing. And so if you're creating something that's more intended for LinkedIn, and somebody pops it up on TikTok, they're going to be like, what the heck is this? This doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
And I came here to be entertained, or I came here to
Right.
be, in some cases, educated, or I came here to look at pretty pictures or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's one thing to have your stuff everywhere, and I think you should have real estate in all of these places. But I think it's important, when you're creating content to promote a podcast on these
Mm-hmm.
platforms, it doesn't look like an ad, because you're
Yes.
just trumpeting all of this information. Like a lot of your content, Darrell, is very helpful. And so for
Mm.
me, when I see your content and you're like, oh, here's a tip on what I learned on Adobe Premiere, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. Like
Right.
that is great for certain platforms. Other
Yes.
platforms, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's being tactical in your content and going, okay, this is really going to work for this platform and this platform. Test on some platforms. I may
Sure.
be
Yeah.
wrong,
Testing is good. Because you'll find that even on TikTok, they're not likely to go look for the podcast that you're promoting, because that
Right.
requires effort, and some people aren't just going to put any effort into it. And TikTok doesn't make it easy. You can't just click here and it'll instantly take you to the full episode of the little promo that you're looking at. So
Right.
so kind of interesting. But anyway, we'll
Yeah.
we'll revisit. Like I said, we're going to need to wrap up here, but I
Yeah.
definitely want to get back together with you, and I want to talk more about live streaming. That's something I
Love
have
it.
not done yet. I'm sort of recording live to tape here, as
Mm-hmm.
we used to say. But I need to get into doing the live streaming thing, and I know, because I'm on Ecamm and I'm part of the Ecamm fam, and just live streaming is kind of what Ecamm is best at. So
Oh yeah.
I've got to push myself into that. So I want to dive deeper into that with you real soon. So we'll schedule something else so we can do that. But anyway, thanks
Awesome.
so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the experience that you bring to the table. You've been doing this thing for a long time, just like me. So it's always good to hear from people who have deep roots in something that you're wanting to learn about and learn how to do. And as part of the Dadcast community, we want to thank you for being here. So I appreciate you, Chris.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Darrell. This is been my pleasure to serve your community, and yeah, I would love to come back and do whatever at any time. Appreciate it.
All right, let's definitely do it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel and join the Video Like a Dad community by going to videolikeadad.com and signing up for my free newsletter. And find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the things at Video Like a Dad. Thanks. See you soon.